Hey everyone, my name is Katie Paris and I am the founder of Red Wine and Blue, this awesome, amazing community of women from all across the country. There are hundreds of thousands of us across the country, and wow, are there a lot of us here together tonight. My favorite part is seeing all of you say where you're zooming in from. Welcome, whether this is your billionth time with us or your very first time. I hope that you feel at home in this community tonight, despite the fact that we are all so completely inundated by all of these campaigns, by constant asks for our time and our attention, on top of everything else going on in our lives with kids and work and family demands in our communities. It's a lot right now. And yet, despite it all, you're here. You're here. All of us are here together tonight. We know that we have this enthusiasm. It is shown by you being here tonight. We know that women are going to determine the outcome of this election. And here's one more really big thing we know. We know that friend-to-friend organizing works, relational organizing, people talking to the people we know, you and me talking to our friends and family about voting and making sure that they get to the polls. We know that works, so we're making a big ask of you tonight. If you're not already in our program, we need you now. Here's what we're going to ask you to do. We want you to use this QR code right here or the link in the chat. I'm sure lots of people are sharing right now. You can use that to go to our rwvotes.com site. You can use the link in the chat. You can use this QR code, or you can text trouble to 59868, trouble to 59868. And this is what you're going to do there. You're going to log on. Julie's going to walk you through it in a little bit after we get Heather on here. And you are going to enter the people that you know that you're going to take responsibility for getting to the polls. And for every 10 people that you enter, Red Wine and Blue is going to donate $50 to women in need of access to abortion services in states where that is heavily restricted right now. Okay, so go ahead and get ready to be doing that tonight, because Heather is going to be answering our questions as we reach out to our friends and we think about these kinds of questions that might come up in those conversations. And so we are going to gain our confidence to talk to every voter, every single person that we know, because that is the power that we have as women to influence this election. We know that. We know that. We know that we have that power. So text trouble to 59868 or use the link in the chat and go on and go through the steps and just get ahead of the game so you can fully participate tonight. And we are going to do so much good here because we're going to get out the vote in the most effective way possible. I want you to assume nothing about the people that you know. Not everyone votes in midterm elections. They need someone they know to make sure that it's a priority. If you use this tool, you're going to be able to see if they've voted yet or if they've requested their absentee ballot. You'll have that information and make sure they get that ballot in. Help them with that voting plan. These elections are going to be close. And there's so much on the line. So thank you for being here tonight. If you are ready to go, let's start by welcoming Heather with a big let's go in the chat. Like, let's just hear it. Let's go. If you are with me, let's go in the chat right now. Give it to me. I want to see the enthusiasm. All right, Heather, come on up. Heather Cox Richardson is here with us tonight. Oh, I love this enthusiasm in the chat.
I'm seeing it. Let's go.
Can you believe it? I love this. I love this so much. The energy that comes.
It's also just so cool that we have this tool, that these are people all over the country. You know, sometimes people feel so isolated over the political issues or that it doesn't involve them. And I love seeing that people are coming in from everywhere.
Absolutely. You know, and Heather, this is quite the pull that I think it speaks to what you have meant in people's lives. It also speaks to the power of community that, you know, we're all in together. I mean, this is 7 days out from an election where, I mean, we all know how our inboxes are right now, on top of all of our regular lives. And to make the priority thousands of people to join us tonight, I mean, it makes me believe change is possible. Okay, so first of all, just Heather, can we start? The last time you were here was a couple months ago. And things have changed since then. We're much closer to the election. You've also gotten married.
Yes, that's true. That's right. It's been a busy
So
couple of months for sure.
congratulations on that. And just tell us, so how are you getting a lot of congratulations here in the chat? No surprise. We're excited for that. And I just had to acknowledge that
I
happy
can't
event.
believe it. I can't believe it, but we did it.
That's awesome.
And it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. We, it had been cold and miserable for weeks, and all of a sudden it turned 80 and sunny, and it was great.
That's amazing. So Heather, in addition to being a newly happily married woman, how are you doing? How are you feeling about things 1 week out from the midterms?
It's funny that you say that, because I was just texting back and forth with someone. I am not nervous the way so many people are, in that for a couple of reasons. First of all, the polls, I think, are just completely unreliable, and we don't know what's going to happen. So we really don't know what's going to happen, except that we know that people need to vote. And the reason I think I'm not nervous is not necessarily because I feel like we're actually going to win against extremism in this moment. And that is a push that includes people from every political background in this moment. This is not partisan. This is democracy versus autocracy right now. But people are awake. And we know that even if, we get rid of all the extremists in this upcoming election, the work's not going to be over. There's still going to be the same kind of thing you're seeing in Brazil this today, where maybe Bolsonaro is going to step down, but there's a lot of people who are still really angry, and they're still jamming the streets, and those things are all still going to be out there. But what a wonderful community we have built. I don't know about you all, but when 2016 happened, I felt like I was all alone. And now I look around me, and everywhere you turn, there are people talking about what they want from their government and how they are participating in that government. And they're my friends. It used to be when I talked about politics, like people would kind of be like, oh yeah, it's like listening to her talk about baseball. Not that I talk about baseball, but it was an inside game that they didn't play. Yeah. Now, lots and lots of people who thought they weren't interested are playing. And it just feels like there's this wonderful supportive community that, we can do this. Maybe not today, and maybe not entirely in a week, although I'm not feeling bad about these upcoming elections. I don't want to say a lot more because I don't want to jinx anything. But going forward every day, it feels like we're building a lot of really strong momentum that talks just not just about our politics, but also about who we are as people, and who we are as friends, and who we are as a community, and who we are as a nation. And I feel really solid about that, no matter what happens in the polling booths.
I think that's felt by so many women. I'm certainly hearing that reflected in the chat here. I think that we have transformed ourselves and become something new and important and different together that won't change. I remember after the 2018 election, there were so many, armchair pundits saying, oh, all these women have become politically engaged now, but this is just a short-term thing. They said they're going back to brunch. They're not going to really stay engaged. Yeah, exactly. They wish, right, Heather? So yeah, we are in this, and there is, because it's not transactional. It's based on community and relationships, and there's no way we're going to let each other down.
Yes.
So,
and I think there's ways in which that the pundits don't see that. They really don't. And you see that, see this all the time when people are saying, oh, what's really important in this election is inflation. And inflation is certainly important, but I don't know who the Dobbs decision isn't important to. At least on, everybody I've talked to, and it's not really showing up.
Yeah, that's right. But it's who's asking the questions,
Exactly.
Okay. So Heather, one thing I think would be helpful to hear is that, I know we're hearing a lot of people, we're beginning to get turnout numbers and early turnout numbers. And that's a big concern. How big is the turnout going to be in this election? And there's concern that, will we not have the level of turnout this time that we did in 2020 that elected Biden? What can you tell us about participation in midterms historically versus general elections, and the importance of reaching every voter possible? Because as I understand it, it's not always the same deal.
Not at all. So midterms generally turn out a lot fewer people than the every 4 years when you have the national campaigns and there's so much hoopla around them. But there are a number of things about this election that are really different. So generally, midterm elections have a much lower turnout, and generally, in the past, they have been seen as referenda on the newly elected president. So somebody's been in office a couple of years, it's a way to say, hey, we like you, or hey, we don't like you. And here's a news flash. Usually it's we don't like you. So Abraham Lincoln, for example, in 1862, got shellacked in the midterms. And that's actually sort of an interesting story, and how he handled that shellacking is really instructive. But this particular midterm election has a lot of surprises to it. So we already know that the numbers that are turning out for this election are higher than the 2018 election, which was also a midterm election and a very important midterm election. So the numbers are already higher than that. Now, we don't know what that means. Maybe people are turning out to vote for Democrats. Maybe they're turning out to vote for Republicans. There's a lot of other factors in that. So we have, for example, a lot of new registrants, but we don't know, of course, how they're going to vote because they've never voted before. We can look at the demographic of them, though, and say they're young women. That says we probably have some ideas about what that might look like. So there's also something else that is very new this time. So the polls, by the way, don't have any idea what's really going to happen. And they will, every 2 years, they do a poll. They correct the mistakes in it, but then there's a whole new set of mistakes 2 years later. And that's just the nature of things moving as quickly as they do. There's also the issue that people have moved during coronavirus, and that a lot of people have died during coronavirus in the last, since the last election. So, those things are not showing up. We don't know how they're going to show up yet. All right. So anybody who tells you they know what's happening in the polls, they don't. We've got a lot of push polls going on. The polls are really unreliable right now. And some people tell you they say one thing, some will tell you they say another. We don't know. What we do know is if there is high turnout, Democrats win across the board. That's the way it's always been. There's also something really interesting about this particular midterm that somebody who studies the long-term history of this country is really interested in. And this is the first time in our history that Americans have broadly, all at once, have lost a recognized constitutional right. So aside from anything else, certainly we had, Black men gradually lost the right to vote that had been guaranteed them in the 15th Amendment in 1870. That was quite gradual. And people kept saying, well, it's not because you're Black, it's because you didn't pay your poll tax or whatever. And it was a little bit vaguer and fuzzier. Took a long time, much longer than people know. And it wasn't something you could say, hey, this happened at 2:00 on June 24th or whatever the exact time was. That really dramatic loss of a constitutional right, we have no idea how that's going to play out because it has literally never happened in our country before. So this year's a crapshoot, and a really interesting crapshoot in terms of our longer history. But anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen is got a heck of a lot more confidence than I do.
There's a lot of, men in our lives, of course, who we will hear with a tremendous amount of confidence that they know exactly what is going to happen because they watched a segment on cable news that gave a review of polls or maybe even a summary of polls. And it is just so true. We don't know what the electorate is going to look like. Election cycle to election cycle, that has changed so much. One thing all kinds of women are a part of the red, wine, and blue community. When I think about the key coalition, and there's many overlapping groups, I think, in our coalition that ultimately is going to help us get past the finish line. But suburban women, along with young people, people of color, of course, suburban women are people of color and people of all colors. Yeah. And so these are overlapping groups, of course, but can you speak to what you're seeing in terms of the significance of suburban women and women, I would say, even as a constituency in this election?
Yeah, a couple of things that jump out to me. And the first of which is a gut sense more than anything that I've seen a poll on. And that's that, I think a lot of us would just like decency back. We can disagree about funding for, our priorities or, any number of things we can disagree about. But a lot of us would like to see respect and decency and concern about sort of the things we're all concerned about, the safety of our children, the ability to put food on the table. And that sounds kind of dumb, like it's so obvious that we should all not talk about that. We should be talking about, I was just actually literally reading a 122-page bill that's been proposed before Congress, and it's like Section 1, Section 2, A, B, and it feels like that's what politics should really be like at some level, but it's not. It's about us, how we treat each other. And so that, I think, above all, is the thing that jumps out to me, as there is just so much nastiness out there. And wherever you've been politically before that, just wanting to return to a kind of public discussion that is not vile. That's the first thing that jumps out to me. And in terms of how women are important, I think that we're looking at a moment in our history that, again, is unique. And that is that, as everybody here, I'm sure, is aware, that women tended to vote like their husbands until 1980. And in 1980, we start to get what's called the gender gap, which means the beginning in that election, the election of Ronald Reagan, women started to vote Democratic much more heavily than Republicans did. And that number peaked in the 2020, or not peaked, it was the highest it had ever been in the 2020 election. And the distinction between the way women voted and the way men voted was higher there. There's also really dramatic differences among Black women who went 88 points for Joe Biden, and Hispanic women and Asian American women, who also went much heavier for Democrats. And the reason I mention all that is because it seems to me that the Democrats have finally figured out that their base is African Americans and women. And that if you look at what Biden has done in office, one of the things that fascinates me, of course, is he's made this is the most diverse cabinet in history, but he has centered the idea of children. So all the other presidents we've had who have had progressive policies, FDR, Theodore Roosevelt, Grover Cleveland, Abraham Lincoln, Eisenhower, they were all focused on men, primarily white men, and they were white men that were heteronormative. They were, in their minds, had a wife and children, and the idea was to make sure that guy got enough money that he could take care of his wife and children. Biden and his team have centered children, and that shifts the entire weight of everything, because if you're looking at making children safe and making children fed and getting children educations, then the next stage of that is their caregivers, not their dads, but their caregivers. And that is such an extraordinary shift in the way the country does business. It's really like the shift of the era. Now, we might go back and people might say, we don't want to do that. We don't want to take care of children. That the attempts to put in childcare and elder care did not go through Congress this year. They couldn't get past, any of the Republicans, and people like Joe Manchin, who's a Democrat from West Virginia. But so we might turn away from that and not do that. But I look at it and I think it's a logical progression of every time we make a step back in America, we then make one a little bit further. And this one, it only makes sense that we would center children, because then you've got a group that is sort of universal, and you can build out from children, because at the end of the day, what is a government there for? It's to protect your children. So that's my sense of why women, especially in this moment and going forward, will be so very important in not only just in voting, but in rethinking what it means to have a democracy and who the centerpiece of that democracy should be. Should it be white husbands and fathers? Or should it be, labor unions? Or should it be, the environment? Or should it be children? I think children's a pretty good option.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think what a shift we've seen, I didn't know that about 1980 being that shift from the gender gap, women sort of voting on their own. Now I think there's evidence to see that women actually are influencing the men in their lives a great deal in terms of how they vote. I think that we're seeing that some in evidence of men who have school-age children, dads, with kids. We're seeing that they are breaking away some in terms of the patterns of men at large. And so that is just exciting to me, and the importance of our voices, and goes back again to the importance of us speaking to everyone we know, men and women. And to the men who are here with us on the call tonight, welcome. We are glad you are here.
Well, and another piece of that I am fascinated by, there have been studies that have been done on formerly Republican voting men who are shifting this year, because central, again, to protecting your children is being able to protect them if they have been raped or are victims of sexual assault. That's even for people who thought nominally they were pro-life, are looking at the fact that so many states are taking away the right to reproductive health care, even in cases of rape. And a lot of fathers are looking at that and saying, now, hang on just a second here. If I'm supposed to be protecting my daughter, how can I protect my daughter if you take away my ability to protect her if she has been raped? And that really surprised me. There's a whole category of those fathers who are saying, at least in this election, I'm voting for Roe v. Wade.
Absolutely. We're hearing that so much too. Okay. So next I'm going to bring up Julie Womack, who leads our national and state organizing teams. And after Julie comes up and walks us all through, lots of people have questions getting on to Rally, our tool to rally your friends to vote, which is so, so, so important. She's going to come on, walk us all through it step by step. So everybody get out your phone, get ready. If you're on your phone, minimize the Zoom screen and pull up a browser so that you can get on this too and participate. Okay. And then Heather will be back and we'll be taking questions from women who are out in the States, as well as from those of you in the chat. Okay. All right, Julie, come on in.
Hello, everybody. All right. So first of all, you kind of heard this already, but I want to explain to you what we're doing because it is so cool. So not only are you going to help protect reproductive rights, save democracy by talking to your friends, you're going to do good at the same time because you are going to be helping raise money for abortion funds. So for every 10 friends that you talk to, who you commit to talking to in Rally, we, Red, Wine, and Blue, are going to donate $50 to the state abortion funds. It's going to help women access the care that they need. Or you can also choose to keep the money, and then you can do what you want to do with that. Maybe you have a favorite charity that you want to donate to. So in either way, you can do this, and you can raise up to $500. Okay. So you get to choose. Everybody say again, ready to go. Hell yes, something in the chat, and we're going to go and get started on this process. So next slide, please. All right. Here's the one thing you need to know. We are talking to women, and we need you to contact women in these 4 states: Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. So if you live in one of these states, pretty easy because probably most of your friends are there, so not a problem. If you do not live in one of these states, maybe you live in Illinois, but you have a lot of friends in Ohio, great. Pick Ohio, go in there. Let's message your friends in Ohio. If you do not live in one of these states and you don't really know anybody in these states, that's okay. We have a way to get you involved. We could love to have you become a troublemaker coach with us. And what we are doing is, you guys, we have a lot of women talking to a lot of people, so we need a lot of support. So what you do is you will be assigned 5 to 10 of our troublemakers, our women who are in there talking to their friends. And you're going to check in with them. You're just going to make sure they have all the support they need, make sure they get all their questions answered, help them brainstorm. And we will get you quickly trained to do this. I know the election is only a week away, which is why you all have to be in there talking to your friends right now. But we will get you some training and get you going to help us in this last week before the election. So my team is dropping links in the chat. If you want to come to an info session tomorrow night, you can. Or if you just want to get going, they're going to drop you the link to sign up right now. So that's great. We would love to have you involved. It's about 5 hours a week, but you know what? It's the last before election. You probably have more that you're going to give all the time you can. We would appreciate it. Ready to go? Everybody has their phone in their hand. And like Katie said, if you are on your phone, minimize us, sweep up, whatever you need to do to get onto the internet. You're going to either enter rwbvotes.com or you're going to text trouble to 59868. Or you can scan that QR code. We all know how to do that now because of COVID and restaurant menus. So everyone, including my father, can do that now. So everybody, please get on to Rally. All right, and what's going to happen as soon as you do that, you are going to get to the first landing page that just kind of says, great, you're here, and you're going to tap Get Started. Next slide. All right, and then you're going to get a little overview of how this all works, which is what I just went through in terms of the every 10 friends raises $50 for abortion funds or for you to take for your favorite charity. So let's do this. Click let's do this. And then easy. You're going to pick the state that you are going to be talking to people in. So I'm in Ohio. I would pick Ohio. So you click your state. And then the next thing you're going to see is the question of where do you want the money to go? Do you want to give it to the state abortion fund, or do you want to have it go to you? You just click whichever option you want. Depending on what path you choose, you are going to have to do a couple of things. If you are choosing to send the money to the abortion fund, that you're just going to enter your phone number. This is how we match your option to your account in Rally. If you decide to take the money for yourself, you're going to have to answer a few more questions because we need to get a way to pay you. So we're going to set up an account for you on bill.com to pay you those funds. So we're going to have to get your email, your address, and your phone number. So just kind of click through and fill in that information. I'm sure you do this all the time for other accounts that you're setting up. And that is all you have to do to make your selection on what you're going to do around raising money. So you are ready to go. For example, I would have picked Ohio because that's where I live. So I am set. I'm going to hit get started. All right. And the next thing you're going to do is then set up your account. So you're going to create a really cool dashboard in Rally where you're going to be able to manage all your contacts and all your friends. So what you're going to do here is you're just going to click sign up. You can either sign up with Google with a Gmail account, and that's really easy because you don't even need a password. You just get a magic link. All right, you have now entered an email address, and then this is the fun part. You get to set up your account. So enter your name, and then like you do for every other thing you do online, you're going to set it up, enter your address. And how do we contact you? Like email, phone number, how do we get a hold of you? Hit next. And then the last thing that you're going to see as you're setting up is that they are doing a study of relational organizing. So this is anonymized. We are not sharing your data, but if you want to do it and be part of it, great. If you don't, click opt out or you just click that button at the bottom to opt out. That's entirely up to you. And then you're going to hit the next button, and that is it. You have now created your own account. You're going to have your own dashboard here in Rally, and you are ready to go. Everybody, let us know if you are at that point. Just drop in the chat and say, yes, I did it. Would have loved to see that. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do, this is the great part. We are going to start adding our contacts. We are going to start reaching out to our friends. We are 1 week out. Let's think big on who we can add, but let's make it easy to start. Who's your best friend? Who's your significant other? Who's an adult child that's voting? Let's just start with them and go through the process. So click add a contact. All right. And this is important. So let's say you're going to enter your husband or your wife right now. You are going to want to make sure you do their legal name. Okay. Because what we're doing is we're going to actually match them to the voter file. This is how you're going to find out really great information like, do they normally vote in midterms? Have they already asked for an absentee ballot? Have they already voted? So we need to match them to the voter file. So if if your friend's name is Elizabeth, goes by Beth, you need to enter the legal name of Elizabeth. So enter their legal name, and then easy. You enter the city they live and the state they live in, hit next, and then their age range, whatever works for you, and hit finish. That's it. You have now entered your first contacts, which so easy. And if you'll notice, we do not ask for their email. We did not ask for their phone number because we are not reaching out to your friends. That is what we want you to do. That is the whole point of this, because you have much more influence over your friends and family than we do, which would be a stranger reaching out. All right, you've now entered your first contact. Let's show you how to match them to the voter file. Right there, you're going to click on their name. It's going to bring up their little profile we've just created. And there's a green button that says match to the voter file. So you click that and it's really easy. So you have entered information about them. So right now, this is going to pull up everybody in the voter file in that area who matches that information. Like, for example, I'm Julie Womack. There's probably one, maybe two of me in that match the voter file. If it had been Julie Smith, my maiden name, there would be 20 of me. So you need to pick the one that matches your friend, your significant other. You'll probably see the street that matches them. All you do is click the right person, hit save, and you have made a match. You have matched them to the voter file. And this is what you're going to be able to find out. You will be able to see their voting history. Did they vote in the 2018 midterms? Did they vote in the 2020 presidential? Important to know, because if they don't normally vote, this is someone you want to have a conversation with about the importance of voting. If they did vote, awesome, they're a voter. But now we need to make sure they vote all the way down the ballot. They don't just stop at the top of the ticket. And that's why this is so important. You're also going to get some further information, as in what is their status right now. So you'll be able to see, have they requested a ballot? Has a ballot been mailed to them? Have they returned the ballot? It will let you know if they voted. This is going to help you narrow down who you need to talk to. So for example, Lynn here, my mom, by the way, her ballot is sitting on her kitchen counter. So I need to reach out to her to make sure that she returns it ASAP. And this is what's going to happen. You are going to keep adding people because there's no time to waste. So you need to add 10 to get to that first $50. And then you're going to keep adding all the way up to like 100 people and make $500 because democracy is on the line. So add as many people as you possibly can. And while we are coming back and listening to Heather give us her words of wisdom, you're going to sit here and just keep entering and thinking and entering and thinking and adding people. And by the end, we're going to ask you, and I want the chat to blow up with like 20, 30, 40, 50 people, please. Okay. Anyways, you're going to have your dashboard of people so you can come back in here, manage your contacts. All right. And then what you can do is really great. I love this. You're going to click on your friend's name and you're going to see a list of actions that you can take with them. Here are a couple of things that I love you can do. We have a voting guide for every single state. So you can send that to your friend. The link is right there. You click on it, copy that link, text it to them, email to them, WhatsApp, whatever you normally do, send that to them and tell them, hey, I know you want to be an informed voter. I am making sure everybody I know turns out to vote. Check out this cool voting guide. Send that to them. We also have a ballot lookup tool. Copy that link, send it to them so they can look up their ballot and see all the way down the ticket and who they need to be voting for. This is the information we have. It makes it really easy to reach out. So for those of you who are just joining or trying to get in, that is the QR code to join. So we are, like I said, donating $50 for every 10 friends you enter. So let's start and take your temperature. Tell us right now in the chat, how many friends have you got in there? How much money have you raised? And while you guys are doing that, and while I start to do that, we are going to kick it back over to Katie and Heather. Guys, we need to impress Heather Cox Richardson. Come on, she turned out for you all. Let's see how much money we can raise tonight.
What if your friends are in different states than those 4?
If you have it, because Red, Wine, and Blue is staffed in 4 states, we've only been around a couple of years. We started in Ohio. We're now in Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. So we have organizers in these places to support folks there. So that means that if you're in that state, you can rally people in that state. If you live in another state, then you can also rally people, take responsibility, do your 10 contacts or more in any one of those 4 states. Now, can you reach out to your friends? Because now you know that this is the most effective way of getting people to the polls in any state. Yes. Do we wish that we had this tonight for you in Wisconsin and Arizona and Florida and Texas and all the places that are so, so important? I mean, it's all important. Yes. And we'll continue to, add places into the future. But for tonight, we are being focused on these 4 states, and you don't have to live in those places to rally in those states. So yes, if you're not in any of those states, please do rally in those states and continue to reach out to your friends where you are. It's the most effective way of reaching voters no matter where you live. And I also just want to say, we are making this process as simple as possible for folks, but to be able to get you guys access to this information, to know who has voted and who hasn't, we got to get you into this tool. So just, be patient as you go through. There's a lot of people using it right now, so that can delay the code getting to your email that you would need to log in. But you can also just use your Facebook account or your Gmail account, your Google, to log in very quickly that way and to start to add your contacts. Once you're in, you can add them. I try to just add 10 before I go to bed every night. It's a bit of a ritual. I suggest it. So anyway, I want to bring some folks up who are out in these states to ask you some more questions, Heather, because you always just bring us a sense of balance and feeling more equipped out there in the world. So Mary, if you are there, I would love to have Mary from Pennsylvania come on up and ask your question.
Hi, Heather. Just a little by way of introduction, I'm in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And I've always been interested in politics. I remember watching the Iran-Contra hearings with my mom when I was in 6th grade. And so it's always been interesting to me. I joined the military when I was 17. But I really didn't get involved until after the Dobbs decision when, in true Red, Wine, and Blue fashion, my college roommate asked if I had heard the emergency troublemaker training with Busy Phillips. So I started out as a volunteer, and now I'm a regional organizer for Red, Wine, and Blue in Pennsylvania.
Good for you.
So yes, it's been an awesome experience. So the question that I have for you is, in talking with a lot of the women here in Pennsylvania, yes, they're concerned about reproductive rights and reproductive freedoms, but a lot of the comments that I get back is, I'm really concerned about the economy right now. I'm concerned about buying groceries. I'm concerned about putting gas in my car. What's your recommendation? What do you think what should our response be when folks are saying they really don't feel like Democrats have a plan when it comes to inflation in the economy?
I actually haven't answered that, but I have to say, like you, I was glued to the Iran-Contra hearings. And those were the days when you had a little TV and my cord was so short that I had a plug in the kitchen that I could only like be in that area. And it was making me so angry. I washed my kitchen floor twice a day through the entire thing because I'm like, I couldn't just sit there, but I couldn't reach it long enough to go into any other room. So I was right there with you. So it's funny you say that, because I'm actually just writing tonight's letter. And the trick is that, first of all, I think it's legit to be concerned about the economy right now. Inflation's hurting a lot of people. The Democrats actually have tried a number of ways to address the problems in the economy. And of course, inflation here is about 9%. It's much higher in most of the comparable countries that we compare ourselves to. But the Republicans have offered no plans at all to get rid of inflation that they're complaining so about, except a number of things. They've called for tax cuts, which economists say will put more money in the economy and create more inflation. And they have also called for taking money out of the system, which would help inflation, by cutting Medicare, by cutting Social Security, by getting rid of the Inflation Reduction Act, which puts a cap on drug prices, and by getting rid of the student debt, the fixing of the student debt. So what that would do is it would take a lot of money out of the economy, but it would take money out of the pockets of the people who are actually in trouble right now. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, the answer to that is, I'm happy to talk about inflation, but what are the Republicans going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Because they have really very carefully never put forward any plans to deal with it. They're just saying, Biden's got to do something, and Biden's out there doing everything he possibly can think of to do. And the issue is, we've got supply chains that are only now healing. We've got price gouging at the top of the economy from the corporations. And we've got a real surplus of cash in the economy right now, because that always happens after a period of time when people can't spend. So it is adjusting, but slowly. I think it's a legit problem. And if the Republicans actually had something to offer, I would love to see it. But when I look at the idea that they're hoping to take money out of the economy by cutting taxes for people at the top, so giving them more money, and then taking it out of the bottom, it just seems to me to be an incredible insult, to be honest.
Yep.
Mind you, I think people who say that probably can't have that kind of an answer, but
no, it's so helpful, Heather, though. It's so helpful. And I think that people are not aware of all the things Democrats have done. And there is this illusion of Republicans saying, oh, we're going to magically solve it. But how?
But how?
Nothing, right? Except for things that would likely make it worse. Thank you for that.
It's worth remembering that there's two ways to look at the world right now. One is there's a bunch of people who think the world works best if you put all the money and power at the top, because those people know how to run the economy and they know how to run society, and they will organize it in such a way that it'll be good for everybody else, because they'll make a ton of money and they'll be able to create new factories and all that, and we will all get jobs from them, and we will do what they say, and that'll restore like order and tradition, and it'll be a much more productive and safer society. Other people think that we all should have a right to have a say in our society and have the money that we produce and make decisions about our own lives. And And I think the thing about that is that one of those is democracy and one of those is authoritarianism. And people might think authoritarianism looks really good until they recognize that they're not going to be one of those people making those decisions.
Thank you, Heather. One thing I want to do is just give a shout out to everyone on Heather's Facebook feed watching right now. Some of our organizers are having a great time over in the chat on your Facebook feed, Heather. Everyone's super engaged and they're really pumped about using Rally and entering their contacts. Apparently calling it wicked smart, which I think comes from your region. So,
well, so I can't, I know I can analyze it. I'm not good at this. That's why I'm here for you. And so I'm also toasting you because you're the one who understands why I do this, right?
Love it. Yes, I can. I love it.
This is not alcohol, by the way. I drink everything out of a wine glass. And Katie is one of the few people who's ever noticed that. And the reason for that is just because my kids used to give me every disease under the sun. And this is because they would grab my drink. And this is the only thing I could get them not to drink. So the secret is I always drink out of a wine glass, although it rarely has alcohol in it.
Right. Often Diet Pepsi, I've noticed, which sometimes is mistaken for red wine.
For red wine, yeah.
Yes.
This is seltzer water.
I love that. Okay, I want to bring up Angela now. Angela is in North Carolina. Angela, you here to ask a question?
Hi, Heather. I am in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My name is Angela Levine. I'm a regional organizer here. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, but before the 2016 election, I voted all the time, but I was not involved in any other meaningful way. So 2016 was definitely my wake-up call. And I dived in. I learned a lot about how the political system works. I worked very hard in the 2018 election. And for me, it was the first election where I actually had met everyone I was voting for that year. And it was so inspiring to me that I got a blue wave tattoo.
Good for you. How cool is that?
The first tattoo, but not the last tattoo that I've gotten. And it's a reminder for me that I can't just assume other people are going to do the work, that I have to be a part of creating the world that I want. So I continued to stay involved. I was involved with the campaign for Pete Buttigieg and did many other things. And coming into this year, I found myself learning about the school board extremism that I had been reading about in other states was right here in my own county. And, got involved in trying to get folks together to stand up to it at school board meetings. And that is actually what led me to becoming a part of Red, Wine, and Blue.
Good for you.
So my question for you is this. When I am out meeting with people, I come across a lot of folks who say, what's the point in voting when both sides are the same? So they end up disengaging with the process because they think voting is not going to create any kind of meaningful outcome. So what do you say to the people who feel like all politicians are the same and that one candidate is really no different than the other?
That's a hard one, isn't it? Because how do you break into that and say, yes, this really matters? For me, there's all sorts of noble things you can say, like there's two directions the country can go to and all that. But one of the things that I always like to say is, a lot of people think it's like a baseball game. Like you vote, you root for your person and you want your team. I'm sorry, I'm not a big baseball person. You root for your team and you care so much about your team that if your team does everything, you always want your team to win. But politics is really a game that your life depends on. So it's worth taking a look at the teams and saying, which team actually is trying to do something for me? And again, in this moment, I think you can make a good argument in many different periods in American history that it's reasonable to go with either party because you might feel an affinity for one and I might feel an affinity for another. In this particular moment, we have one party that actually believes your vote matters and that we should have a democracy where you get to have a say. And we have another party that's being taken over by radical extremists who literally, many of them say that they should not have to honor your vote. And, not everyone's going to hear that, but it seems like it's a lot starker this time around than it was in, 1974, when, yeah, maybe there was a reason people didn't turn out. So I don't know if that helps, because I think apathy is the hardest thing, right? They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy.
Yeah, that's right. Angela, thank you so much for that question. I know it's one that we all get a lot, and that was a brilliant answer. Next, I want to bring up Archana. Archana is in Ohio, my state.
Hello.
Come on up, Archana.
Hi, I'm from a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, called Dublin. Thank you so much for taking my question. I am a regional organizer with Red, Wine, and Blue in Columbus, and I was a biologist before I had children, and then I had 3 children and stayed at home for many years, and I was not engaged in politics at all. I would vote just for the president, but not really, pay much attention. But my 12-year-old this summer came to me after Roe was overturned, and she said, "Mom, what are we going to do? What are you going to do?" And that really struck me. And I decided, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make change in my neighborhood. I'm going to get more active politically. And I joined Red, Wine, and Blue, and I really, started making some change. But I know that my daughter's not the only one. This younger generation is really mobilized right now. I can see that. I'm the perfect example of that as someone who is motivated by a young person. But I talk to a lot of people who think, this isn't going to last. So can you tell me, from a historical perspective, when youth movements have succeeded? And what do you say to people who claim that this younger generation is not going to show up or make a difference if they do show up?
So that you asked the right person on that, because it's not just the young people, it's also people like we are here, people who might not otherwise have been engaged in the political process, and suddenly it seems important. And there's the obvious place to look first is in the 1850s, when out of the blue, it seemed to people who had not been paying any attention at all, the elite enslavers from the American South took over first the Democratic Party and then the national government, and it looked like they were going to spread enslavement all over this country. And in 1854, when they first start doing that, people suddenly wake up who had not really, including Abraham Lincoln, who was really like, he was off being a lawyer, wakes up, and they start to hold rallies and hold meetings and start to explain what's happening. And of course, it looks worse and worse and worse as things go along. And they rally, and they, of course, manage to end the takeover of the United States government and to restore democracy. But something people don't know as much about is something that happens in 1889 into about 1892. And that is in a moment like this, when it looked as if the Republican Party, which at the time was run by corporations in a really major way, was going to take over everything. A lot of people were struggling really badly, especially on the Western Plains and in the American South. And they didn't feel like they had time to pay attention to politics, and all they were trying to do was eat. And people like Mary Elizabeth Lease, for example, and much younger people started to explain to people the way things worked. And they started to talk about what democracy was supposed to look like. And they started, this fascinates me, they started newspapers, for example, most of which don't exist any longer because they were so ephemeral. And they had meetings, and they had picnics, and they had all kinds of gatherings. And people back east didn't pay any attention. They literally did not pay attention. And so all these people are writing, all these politicians are writing letters back east and saying, folks, we got a problem out here. These young people are all organizing, and they're all going to vote against us. And in some states, the Republican Party didn't even run candidates that year because they said, there's no point, we're just going to lose. And what they did is they organized new ways of looking at politics. And they worked often with the Democrats, but often not. This was called the political alliance, it was called. And they shellacked the Republicans in 1890. They lost the House by a margin of 2-1. They thought they were going to win, and they lost the Senate as well. Again, they thought they were going to win it. And the reason that I mention that is because in this moment, gatherings like this are ones that are not showing up on the radar screen of so many of the pundits, newsletters, blogs, us writing to each other. Those things remind me so much of the Alliance newspapers, which I say most of them don't even exist anymore because nobody saved them, in places like South Dakota, which at the time had only just become a state, or Nebraska, all those Western states. And they completely took over the Congress with the Democrats in 1890. And then they got absorbed by a major party. They got absorbed by the Democrats, and most of the things that they wanted went into effect. Now, that party kind of fell apart. Nobody remembers that much about them, but they had an extraordinarily lasting impact on the American government. They were one of the major roots of the progressive era. So when I think about people being involved and lasting, it's not just we want them to show up and vote. We need those new ideas, and we need those new people, and we need those new tools for organizing. And even if some of those people fall away, which they usually don't, because they've been, at that point, it's become part of their identities, they're going to make a big difference.
So inspiring, not only for youth movements, but for this movement that we are all building here together, and knowing that we are under the radar and that they have no idea what's coming. I am thrilled to be in this with all of you all. And I'm loving seeing people report how many contacts they have put in Rally. We are running short on time. It always goes so fast with Heather. I want to bring up here, up on the screen with me, with Heather, Mandy, you're going to ask a question, I know, but we've run out of time. Julie Collins, I want to bring you up because these two women represent, to me, honestly, the red, wine, and blue journey, Heather. Julie Collins she has run God knows how many hundreds of troublemaker trainings, relational organizing trainings, helping women connect with each other in their local communities all across this country. And she's been there from the beginning. She was one of our original organizers. And she always told me, Katie, go big or go home. This movement, this community has so much power. We have to keep going. We have to keep going. That's how we extended beyond Ohio. Julie Collins has been a chief troublemaker with this crew from the beginning. And then Mandy has just joined us in the last few months. She became deeply involved in West Michigan, fighting the school board extremism in her own community. And she has become one of the most effective organizers on the red, white, blue team. No shade to anyone else. They're all amazing. You guys are all the most effective organizers. We love you all. But anyway, so Julie and Mandy, like, you truly represent, I think, my journey. You represent like this whole journey and this community that we are all a part of together. So Julie Collins, you just want to hop in for a sec?
Sure. This election is critical for my daughters and for my little nieces that I love and adore. But it's critical for all of us here on this call as well. And I have been so impressed tonight with all of the conversation in the chat that's been going on. Like Katie said, I always knew we were going to be big. I always knew we were going to be in the hundreds of thousands of women energized and, making this United States the way that it's supposed to be, and really affecting the things that are going to go on in the world, because our leaders actually have influence in other places. So ladies, keep it going. We've got 7 days. Get as many folks into Rally as you can, get as many folks as you can to the polls. Our very lives depend on it. And
That's
thank
right.
you so much for being here. And thank you, Heather, for
Thank you, Julie. If people are asking, we have had almost 2,000 people participating in this call tonight. There are tens of thousands who have been contacted by folks who are rallying to vote. We've raised over $50,000 for abortion funds locally to help women who really need that access who are in restricted states. And those numbers are going to keep going up, because I know that all of you are going to keep rallying. We also had 2 more people just to hop into our little chat here. Welcome to Rachel and Alex Vindman, who were just low-key participating in Zoom tonight, and we're just becoming too popular in the chat to not come say hello to Heather. So Mandy, I just want to give you a second to share what your experience has been, newer to the team. Everyone's at the party. She's trying to be at the party. Heather, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Do you have any words of advice, encouragement as we head into these final 7 days? We're on your team. Tell us, Coach.
Yeah, I do. And what I love about this is it's all about this community. It's all about making this country what we want it to be. And, you think about the right to vote and talking about what we want out of this country. And, the great beauty of it, I was saying to someone the other day, it's like, we actually would have something to say to Fannie Lou Hamer. And she would have something to say to, Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass would have something to say to Abraham Lincoln. And wouldn't you rather be in this club than in the other club? And it's a really nice place to be. So in terms of this upcoming election, let's go out and fight it hard. And with luck, we'll be really happy afterward. But if we're not as happy as we'd like to be, there's always another day. And with all these people around us, it just feels so way much more hopeful than it did a decade ago. I cannot tell you how wonderful it is. So, let's go out and get more people to join the club.
Let's do it. If you feel like Heather does, just give us a yes in the chat. Let's just affirm each other and being here for each other. At Red, Wine, and Blue, we always say that we're going to own our power. We're going to lift each other up because we know that we can do this together. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Hello to the Vidmans. Mandy, we feel your spirit, even though you couldn't get on the audio. And thanks, Julie, for being here too. And Heather, thank you. We are so glad to be in this club with you.